Welcome to episode 231 of Missing Pieces. This is my weekly audio journal podcast where I talk about what I'm up to and what I'm into. Recording this episode on Friday, November 22nd, 2024, which just so happens to be the final day and final show before we start Thanksgiving break. And I am very thankful for that. This week, you might be a little disappointed in this episode. I should say that off the top because I feel like this week I've just been in a holding pattern, just kind of getting into a routine that I don't think many, including myself, would find overly interesting. In fact, last weekend, I didn't record anything, and I've been trying to record a little bit each day, trying to make a vlog. Last weekend, I didn't record anything, and even the vlogs this week, I'm just kind of stacking them up because I don't feel like any one of them in particular is interesting enough to be its own episode. So I'm like, well, maybe if I just put a bunch of them together, and I'm kind of just in like a routine. I wouldn't call it a funk or a rut or anything like that. It just is like when you start doing the same thing over and over again, and like the weather has kind of changed. In fact, today it's actually snowing outside as I'm recording this. You kind of just like, I don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I'm just kind of there. So this episode, I was like, I don't know, I guess I'll just record what I got into and up to as I tend to do. And surprisingly, what usually happens is I feel this way sometimes. And then once I get going, it's like, hey, some things actually did happen this week. So why don't I talk about that? Some things that we did this week as we wait for Thanksgiving break to start. And I'm very excited about that. We'll start with that topic because that's kind of a preview of what's to come. After Clark gets off of school today and Cody, we have 10 days of Thanksgiving break in front of us. Although Cody has to go back on Monday for Mrs. Brickitect, as she's known in some circles, just to be clear. She has to go back for an in-service day on Monday, no students. And then Tuesday is parent-teacher conferences. So Wednesday is her official day off. But with Clark, man, we've got this weekend, we've got all of next week, we've got the next weekend after that, and then the next Monday after that. So 10 full days where we get to just hang out and do all the things that we want to do. And I'm like really excited for that because there is a lot of stuff we like to do, including some things we did this week, starting with the world of Lego. Last Sunday, we got up in the morning and we built the Lego buildable Groot figure, which is really cool. I got a great deal on it with Target. It's usually typically retails for $55, which I think is crazy. Like Lego prices, in my opinion, we won't go there, but I vote with my wallet, and I feel like Lego prices at MSRP these days are outlandish. So I very rarely buy a full price set unless it's something that's like an absolute must have, which happens occasionally. I actually have big plans for next year and how I'm going to do my Lego thing. And I may have talked about it here, and I'm not going to talk about it now. We'll put it as like a topic to discuss as we go into the next year and my goals. But we got up Sunday morning and I had this set. I got it for $26, which was great, like less than half off. And we built it together that morning and made a little video about it. And I just want to say, like, I think that is my favorite aspect of Lego building. I love just hanging out with the Clark man. We split a set. He builds a part of it. I build a part of it. And then it comes together to make something really cool. And that's kind of what happened with that. And I enjoy that quite a bit. And I know when I go back and look upon my Lego journey and wherever it takes me in the future, I know the times that I'm going to cherish the most are the ones that we had together doing that kind of stuff. Is as exciting as sorting and organizing and selling the stuff is, the time with the little man is the most important. And that's kind of what I'm getting hyped on is as we lead into this break that we're going into 10 days, which I know we're going to go really fast, but it's like, it's much needed in my life right now. So I'm excited for it, and I'm sure you are too after you watch the upcoming vlogs of this week where it's just like me doing boring stuff. Speaking of boring stuff, let me tell you about a video game that came out this week that I was so excited to play and was an absolute disappointment. And if you've been following the channel, you already know what it is. It's Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This is a game that I've been looking forward to coming out for probably about a year now. I really enjoyed the last Flight Simulator, which came out in 2020, played that quite a bit, and I just love simulator games. I'm sure I've talked about that too, but I love flying and I love planes, and I was just like, dude, day one, this comes out, it's on Game Pass, I'm going to play it as soon as I can. So I think it was Wednesday, it became available at 11 a.m. I rush down, I go to do the huge download, and then it turns out that it's not a huge download, it's a small download. And the reason is because everything that you play in this game is essentially on the servers, in the cloud, what have you. It's not like the old days when you'd put your Nintendo cartridge in and the game that's on that cartridge is the game you play. How many people even know what that's like? It's everything can be changed, everything can be updated, which in some cases is good, but not good when they can't handle the demand. And apparently they were not prepared for the number of people that were going to be playing this game. And even mobile days later, I'm going to put my phone on airplane mode. My apologies. Mrs. Brickitect is blowing my spot up right now. So, well, you didn't hear this from me, but you're more important than her, at least right now. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. But if I get distracted here, this whole thing's going to go off, and it probably already has. It's off the rails. We'll talk about rails here in a moment because Flight Simulator actually turned into Loading Simulator. Day one, I could barely play. I was just able to barely get in after a long time of waiting. I was live streaming all this, so it was publicly embarrassing for me to go in to play a game that I couldn't even get into. But I had some troopers there with me. In fact, more people were watching me load Flight Simulator than watched us play Totally Accurate Battle Simulator before. Go figure. I guess it's the demographic. People, they love the boring games. So, like me, and I appreciate that. So we waited for this to load, and I decided, I'm just going to do a free flight. We'll go to Kauai, and I want to show, the place that we stayed over the summer, the location, all that. I loaded up. It basically looks like Minecraft. The trees, legit are Minecraft trees. The graphics look like Flight Simulator 98. It's just struggling in general. But then after flying for, 10 minutes, after loading for, half an hour, everything kind of populated in, and I was able to do that flight. And then I landed the plane, and then I wanted to go do something else, and we just had the same situation again. And it was disaster. I made a whole video about it, not only on my gaming channel, which actually got some decent traction, but also on the vlog channel. I kind of documented the behind the scenes of my excitement. And the video was supposed to be about how excited I was to play this game, and I was going to show it off. And then none of that happened. So I gave it another day after that. And then the next day I was let me try it again. And I was fully expecting everything to be fine. Even as player numbers dwindled, I looked up an article and it said the peak player count in the first 24 hours dropped by 60% because people were just not having it. So I thought 2 days later we'll be fine, surely, right? No, it was still the same situation. So I was able to do one flight for 4 minutes, and then we were done for. I spent 40 minutes trying to get into that, live streaming the whole thing. So I gave up, and then I played, this is where the Rails part comes into play. I played Train Sim World 5, which if you think flying planes is boring, how about moving buttons around inside of a train to get it moving? Way more boring and way more fun to me. So I played that, and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot to learn in that, and it seems a little overwhelming, but they really do a good job of holding your hand and leading you into how to do everything. You have to do everything, flipping the lights in the right position, moving the reverser, putting the reverser in, the throttle, the brakes, the couplings, which I learned yesterday. It's very fun in a way that someone like me finds boring things fun, if that makes sense. It's also very different from Farming Simulator, where they kind of just throw you in, and it's here's a farm, and here's a bunch of equipment, good luck. And you're just well, how does any of this work? I've never harvested grain before. I've never used this equipment. And you're kind of just fumbling around trying to figure things out. Whereas this game, they teach you some challenging things, but then the next thing that you do, they reteach that to you. And it's repetition. And then after a little bit, you're just oh, I know how to do all this, until they put you in a new train. And then you're well, how does this one work? But man, I just love it. I love simulator games, as I've probably talked about before. And there's even another one that I was thinking about jumping into eventually. It's called Car Mechanic Simulator. And I'm I don't know anything about being a mechanic, but it sounds like fun. I like to do all these things that maybe I'd like to do in real life, including the game that everyone wants to watch me play. And surprisingly is way more popular than anything else that I play currently. And that is Euro Truck Simulator 2. If you remember back, I used to play American Truck Simulator, and I played the heck out of that game, going all over the West Coast and finally ending my run at the Grand Canyon in Arizona. And it was really a neat experience. And for whatever reason, of all the things that I stream and play, American Truck Simulator was that game that people just absolutely love, because I don't know why. It's just me driving down the road, talking all kinds of nonsense. And when we get to our destination, I back the truck in, and it's my favorite part. In fact, I want a game that is nothing but just backing trucks in simulator. Instead of loading simulator, backing trucks in simulator, like a mini game. And I don't know, people love it. I love it. And it seems perfect. So I did a poll today because I was hoping to have some time to play. Whether that happens or not because of this here podcast is remaining to be seen. But I did a post and I said, would you rather, since we're loading Flight Simulator, what would you like to see me play while I'm doing that? Would you like to see more Train Sim World 5, or would you rather see me jump into Euro Truck Simulator 2, where we take our mother truckers, which is my company's name, all the way out to Europe, and then we drive around and see what it's like out in Europe? And it was like 93% of people want to see that. So I got no love from the train peeps, which is surprising because I feel like a large part of our fan base are like Thomas peeps. So I'm surprised like the train thing didn't translate over. But I love the game, so I'll probably be playing it. But the people want to see me go trucking, so that one's going to be a bit of a challenge. I just downloaded it today. I'll have to map my controller to get all the controls the way that I want them. It's going to be a bit of a pain, but I'm trying to get all the boring stuff out of the way now because when Clark's off, then we'll probably be playing a lot of games together, and I've got some fun things up my sleeve. So that was kind of like my week in gaming. I made some fun streams, some good videos, I feel like, over there, and I'm having fun with that. I would say of like all the things I did, that's probably like the most interesting stuff is playing these simulator games. So that goes to show you, as I mentioned at the top of the show, just how boring my week was. But I'm having fun, and being that like we're kind of in that season right now where there's not much else to do, I feel like the gaming thing is kind of filling my life. What isn't filling my life though is eBay orders. I've been doing a very bad job of replenishing inventory. I'm supposed to be listing, my goal is to list 3 items a day, which would put us at like almost 100 items a month. And speaking of trains, I've got a lot of Thomas stuff to list. I've got video games to list, and I've got a lot of Lego stuff that needs to be sold off that I'm just never going to do anything with. And I haven't been keeping up with that. And I am angry at myself for not doing that. I just don't know where the time goes. I think between making these videos and streaming and all the things that I do, I can't seem to find the time in the day, which seems crazy, I know, and I just have no excuses other than just to say that I'm failing at my goal. But keeping it real, I'm keeping it real. So I haven't been to the post office in a long time. I haven't been making any sales because like the stuff that was going to sell is sold. I've lowered prices on other things, and like some things just aren't going to sell, or maybe just need to wait for the right person. But if I get on there and I start listing again, I know what happens because I've done it before. I start listing, and what do you know it? I instantly start seeing results, just like most things in life. Very much like maybe your health, which I will move into the next topic on. I continue to do really well in that regard. I'm like a guy that's balancing a ton of plates, and I can never seem to balance more than 2. I'm trying to balance like 6, and 4 of them are all broken on the ground right now. The health thing though, doing well with that because I've set the pressure of a deadline. You know how much that motivates me. And my 40th birthday is coming up on December 28th. I've got a weight loss goal in mind, and I'm striving to hit that, not only with going to Planet Fitness and lifting weights, which I love to do and continue to do, but I'm also doing the elliptical on days I don't go there, doing that for 30 minutes. And I'm also being very careful with the foods I eat, with the carbs I'm taking in. No more sugary drinks, no sodas outside of Zevia. And in doing all that, it's funny, where you put your focus, you have success. It's weird how that works. You don't focus on eBay, you don't make any sales. You focus on your health, things go well. I'm down 3 pounds this week, and I'm just like, yes, things are working. And like, if I continue on this pace, I'm going to hit my goal. I just have to be careful throughout December. I know it's going to be a little dangerous because not only do we have Thanksgiving coming up here, which I'm going to go like super lean until we hit Thanksgiving. I'm going to be having some pie that day and stuff. Okay. You can't stop me. But Christmas is Christmas cookie season. And Mrs. Brickitect, or Cody as she's known in some circles, she makes the best chocolate chip cookies there are. And I can sit and I can eat 3 or 4 of those with a big glass of milk, and none of that's going to help me get to my goal. I need to have a deficit every day. And I do the elliptical in order to make that deficit greater. So I guess if I did 30 minutes in elliptical, it could probably get me maybe like, I don't know if it could even get me a cookie. Is it worth it? For her cookies, yes. So I'm willing to make that sacrifice. And I do think you can splurge here and there, but when you have a very strict goal, you have to be very strict with yourself to get there. And it's just, I know that. I'm a very driven dude, and I know that where I focus my attention, if I decide to do something, it happens. If I let my foot off the gas, eBay, for example, it falls apart. So, it's something I need to learn. I'm very much aware of it. If there anything that I can do to fix it, absolutely. If I made a commitment, like before I do anything else, like obviously I love playing Flight Simulator. Is that accomplishing any goals for me? No, I consider that to be more of a, just a leisure thing. Maybe in order to play Flight Simulator, in order to speak, I have to list 3 things on eBay that day. If I did that and you get into that routine, you develop habits, they get done. So yeah, I just thought I'd share all that and, let you know the things that I'm doing well at, the things that I'm failing at, the things that other companies are failing at for me. Flight Simulator, looking at you. It's all kind of stacking up, and like it's kind of leaving me in a place, like I said earlier, where I'm just feeling like I'm not very exciting. And when your business is, I guess, being exciting, although I shouldn't say that. Lots of people love just coming along with me in my day-to-day activities. In fact, some people really find comfort in that, and I appreciate that. I just want to give you something worth watching. You know what I mean? So I'm just down on myself, and I don't think that's really necessary. In fact, if I just didn't film at all for until like something happens, that wouldn't be a big deal. But I like to stay consistent, and I think that's important when it comes to being a content creator, even if it is, sharing just the day-to-day things, which is, I guess, what a lot of people like. So that's all that. Speaking of sharing things and getting feedback from people, I bought an expensive camera. I talked about this last week. I bought an expensive camera called a Sony ZV-E1, and I bought a lens for it because it was on sale, and I was like dreaming about this camera. I've done so much research. It's like all I do on YouTube is look at camera videos. The algorithm knows me well. And this camera, I got it and I played around with it. I was liking it. And I was comparing it to my Canon camera, which I currently have, that was half the cost, not only the body, but also the lens. And when you know it, after I finished last week's episode, I went and looked at all the comments from the video that I put out. I think it was the day before. And nearly every single person preferred the Canon to the Sony when I did my comparisons back and forth. And I thought, well, you know what? I could save myself about $2,500 here by just sticking with what I already have. And I think that may be what I'm going to do. I can return the Sony all the way up until January 31st, 2025, because like Amazon gets into the zone where it could be a Christmas gift, so they give people lots of time. So I might play around with it some more. But I think, like, in terms of what I do, I think that camera is way too much for me, not only financially, but like just the things that it can do. And I don't think people really care. I film videos with all kinds of different equipment. I feel like I treat my camera bag, almost my virtual camera bag, almost like someone would treat a bag of golf clubs. There's a different camera for every situation. And in whatever situation I'm in, I never have anyone come to me or comment or say anything like, man, the quality of this really sucks, or this, like, that looks like crap. I mean, you might be able to see some differences, but I do think the Canon is perfectly fine. I'm just always like on the looking for the next best thing. And sometimes the thing you have is good enough. And the thing that you own is, you don't need to always be looking. You don't always need to be thinking about the next best thing, because sometimes the thing you have is the thing that does the job. And mine very much does. There is one lens that I've been dreaming about, and I feel like it's going to go on sale on Black Friday for the Canon. So if I get that, I'm going to sell the other lenses that I have, and I'm certainly going to return the Sony and, just rock it. And that's like my at-home camera when I'm around the house. When I go out, I don't take a giant camera with me. I film with my phone. If I'm doing anything out in the elements or in water, I have my action camera. I've got the Pocket that I can use for things. Clark loves that camera too. And I've got an Android phone that I use for live streams. Like, there's all kinds of things. I've got this camera that I use for streaming. I've got a lot of cameras, and I've got a lot of stuff. I've got my camcorder if I want to do a vintage video. I got enough in my bag of tricks that I don't really need to spend that much money. I think it'd be foolish to spend that insane amount of money, which maybe to you, like $2,500 isn't an insane amount of money. For me, like for a camera, that's more than I've ever spent. The camera that I'm using right now, the Canon, I got refurbished on sale for $1,000, and it's a fantastic camera. So, and that's the most that I've spent. The way that I was able to justify it was like, I didn't upgrade my iPhone this year or last year because they're just like stumbling when it comes to camera improvements. And I was like, well, I could just put the money I was going to spend on that towards this. But when your audience gives you the feedback that they like the other thing better that you already have, why bother? So that's kind of where I'm at. And then I thought I'd give an update. I'm sure you probably, it's probably not the top of like the things you were wondering list, like, oh, what's he going to decide on the camera? That's my decision. I think we're just going to go with the Canon unless something changes in the meantime, or if I keep playing around with this one and it turns out that I really love it. There is another lens for it that I wanted to try out, but I don't want to order another lens and have to return 3 things with Amazon. I feel like they're going to blacklist me. So I might just stick with what I have and just let that be good enough. That being said, I'm always like, I'm always looking. So, we won't roll anything out. In fact, Fujifilm has a new camera out that I've been eyeing up, and it's kind of more of a budget one. So I might use that for photography because I've been thinking about getting into that too and learning all of the things of being a proper photographer as a hobby. And I've been thinking like about next year too, and how maybe I wanted to become more goal oriented and make my channel less about like the Home Alone with Greg and documenting day to day that I find like kind of repetitious. Is that a word? I'm going to make it a word. Repetitious, repetitive. We'll go with that one. I think that might work better. I might make a goal of looking in the dictionary to learn words that actually exist. But I was thinking about making my channel kind of goal focused, not only setting goals for myself, maybe having Patreon peeps set goals for me that I can work towards and documenting how I make out at those things. That'd be really fun and maybe motivating for other people too. And like kind of give my content a focus and something that's searchable too. We've talked about that. Maybe a little mix of everything. We'll see. Nothing has to be like all or this or that. I kind of live in those worlds where it's like that, and it doesn't have to be. It can be both. That's why I'm keeping the Sony camera with the Canon, and I'll have two really good cameras to use for alternate shots. No, I don't think we're going to do that. But let's go from, there's no good segue here, from all of the things that I was into and up to, although this kind of is that. Watch-a-tech, things I watched, kind of fits into that. Doesn't relate to cameras in any way. Although movies, hear me out here, the connections. Movies are filmed with cameras. Cameras are what I was talking about. Now I'm going to talk about movies. Mind blown. Play the X-Files music. Oh, Greg, he didn't edit that in. He just exported this video and uploaded for you. Apologize for that. Watch-a-tech. Watched two movies this week that couldn't be any more different. The first one was a Clark Mann request. It's called Inside Out 2. I don't think that I saw Inside Out 1, but I know the premise of it. This one, though, I will explain to you. Warning ahead of time. I am terrible at giving movie reviews and recapping things. So this is going to be pretty rough. So the premise of Inside Out 2 is that it focuses on this young girl, and it's mainly inside of her mind where there are these characters that represent all of her different emotions, and they're all kind of like, they look different and they're different colors and such. So every time that this girl has an emotion, it's almost like these little characters inside her brain are controlling what she does or how she acts and what she says, which is a great premise. And in this movie, Inside Out 2, she is going into a new school and trying to join the hockey team there. And she's also going through puberty at the same time. So while these original characters from what I'm assuming is the original movie are trying to like help her navigate this, as she's going through puberty, which if you're a young kid watching this or listening, ask your parents or don't. Depends how they feel about that. New emotions come in. And there's all these new characters that are much more complicated, and they kind of force out the original group who's like anger and joy and now that's like embarrassment and boredom and all the teenage emotions. And now as she's going through this life, and particularly one scene that I really loved is when she's going into the school for the first time, she meets the star hockey player of the girls' hockey team, and she's like obsessed with her. And then she goes from like excitement, and then like the other, like as she's going overboard with it, the other emotion runs over and like gets her to do like almost like embarrassment. And you can see it instantly change in her face. And I just love the premise of like you're almost not in control of yourself. It's like these little characters inside your brain that are deciding how you act and react to things. And it was such a really well done movie, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. It was not high on my list. It wasn't one that I would have actively sought out, but it was a family movie that we were watching together. And it's not easy when you have three different people like trying to decide what movies to watch, like Cody likes her things. I like mine. Clark is more like the kids stuff. So to find like family friendly movies is good. And Inside Out 2, which I believe was on Disney Plus, which I'm sure many people have, it was worth a watch. And I would probably recommend watching the first one. Do you need to watch the first one before this? No, I don't know if I watched. I certainly don't remember it. And I could go into this one, and like just the background that I gave you there is enough to know what happens in this movie. I'm not going to spoil anything else, but you can decide how I did there in explaining that one. Hopefully I got the premise across. So mainly the movie is about the girl, but most of it is about the emotions inside of her and these characters who are voiced so perfectly. Each of the voices is fantastic, especially the anger one. Next movie I watched. This was a solo Rolo one. It was a movie that I saw when it came out in theaters. Haven't watched it since, so I couldn't remember a whole lot from it, but I remember really loving it then, and I loved it all over again. It's called V for Vendetta, and this movie is set in like a futuristic and or present dystopian London, it seems, where almost like 1984, the government has taken over and makes their people kind of live under fear, using propaganda. And V, who is wearing the Guy Fawkes mask, I think is how you say his name. It's like remember the 5th of November. In the UK, you would have a lot more knowledge of this than we do. But it was a guy that tried blowing up Parliament like 400 years ago. Well, V, who wears this mask, he's been wronged by the government and he's trying to get back at them. And he tries to get the people of the country to revolt. And he does a terrorist act where he blows up this statue of sorts. And then he makes an announcement that 1 year from then, he's going to come back and destroy Parliament. And he wants everybody to be there with him. In the meantime, Natalie Portman, she gets involved with him, and he's just such a fascinating character. He has these knives that he uses. I think he's a comic or a graphic novel character, which I've never seen the graphic novel, but yeah, V for Vendetta. It's on Amazon Prime Video. It's a really good movie with, I guess you could say, a good message. It's kind of just about like one quote that he has is that the government should fear the people shouldn't fear the government. And that's kind of how I feel. And it's so interesting. I'm not saying that we're at the point that the movie is, but it's interesting to see how like these like fascism and dictators and things like that can kind of like take over and people let it happen, and how the story can be morphed and changed to be whatever they want it to be. So people are like either complacent or unworried or worried. They can be anything that people that are in power want them to be. And this movie is sort of like a message to not let that happen, which I think is a good message for us in our current times. Again, we're not quite there yet, but you can probably see how through the use of social media or TV or whatever, algorithms can skew things to make you feel however. And it doesn't even have to be political. I mean, I think it's known that on Facebook, they've learned that angry and agitated people tend to interact with content on there more than if you just make people happy. So oftentimes some of the things you'll see, and I can't speak from firsthand experience because I'm not a Facebook detector, and this is probably happening everywhere, but they show you things that gets you kind of worked up because you tend to engage with that more, and you get into heated battles with other people or bots or whatever. And that's how our brains work. And if that's what keeps you on the site, that's what gets advertising dollars, that's what you see. And then at the end of it, you're left with, like, angry. And it wasn't your intention to go on to social media and get angry. I don't feel like YouTube is really that way. At least my algorithm isn't. It's just camera videos. And there's like no political stuff. There's no like news. There's no nothing. And I find YouTube to be a happy place for me. Whereas Reddit, I love going on and I love reading discourse. I tend to get like news from there a little bit too. Like I look at like the trending stuff, but I feel like a lot of the content there leaves me feeling less content than I was before I got on there. Like I found various subreddits, like one's called r/collapse, which just consistently talks about how we're doomed. And like I've realized like as a species, as the earth, and I'm just like, this is not helping me in any way. Is it even like, I'd almost rather be ignorant to such things if such things are true than to spend time looking at it, because what can you do? I mean, I hate to say that, but it would take massive change to make any difference. And I don't see that change coming. So it's like, maybe it's better just to live in ignorance, which is terrible, but man, I don't know. But I feel like the best thing, not to go too hard into that, but I feel like the best thing for me, and I'm like, really don't want to do this because I do find comfort in it as like my app that I go to. We probably all have those. Like you might have Instagram or Facebook. You probably have some social media thing that you go to as your comfort thing where you're just like not doing anything. Maybe it's YouTube. And I find myself clicking on Reddit and just kind of looking through the most recent posts. And I don't think it's benefiting me outside of maybe knowing some things that are happening. I don't think I'm getting a net benefit out of that. So there's a part of me that really wants to just delete the app. And I know that once I do, I won't miss it. Like TikTok, for example. I haven't been on TikTok in like a month. I was posting like little short snippets of my vlogs there, but then I realized like I'm just wasting my time. I have like 148 followers there, and it's just like, why am I even doing this? It's like, it's not generating anything. It's not making any money. It's just taking my time. I'm done. And then, like, I just haven't even been on there. I don't miss anything. There's like two creators on TikTok that I enjoy watching that I wish they would just make YouTube videos instead. I I don't need TikTok. I don't need their algorithm. I don't need them feeding me anything. If it disappeared today, I would not be upset whatsoever. If Instagram disappeared today, I would not be upset whatsoever. I go on there like once a month and I check messages that people send to me. If Facebook went away today, I wouldn't even notice it. The only ones that would really bother me would be YouTube and potentially Reddit, but I would give up Reddit instant. YouTube is the only place that I really love being. I love making connections with people through my videos. I love connecting with people through their videos. I love long content and I love boring stuff, and like I just need YouTube to be around. Outside of that, all that could go away. And honestly, if all of that went away, I feel like we would all be better off. But that's just me speaking. Some people would say we'd better off if YouTube were disappeared, which is possible, but that's just how I feel. I don't know how all of that tied into watching V for Vendetta, but it got me thinking, and that's kind of where I'm at in the world of news and social media. I'd rather just not be involved. I just like watching YouTube videos, and I'm happy with that. And that, like, I leave YouTube happy. Like, YouTube's been killing it for me with the recommendations lately. I'm always like, ooh, I want to watch that. I want to watch that. I want to watch that. And it's great. So I'm just going to keep doing more of that and not getting down about all the other stuff that may or may not be happening out in the world, right? Um, Two follow-up topics, one of which you guys commented on a lot, so we'll save that for right after this one. But I told you at the end of last episode we were going to look at a house, which we happened to do this week, and it didn't quite pan out. I'm sure you're curious, like, oh, you guys move in? Did you find that house, or how'd you like it? And I guess if I had to explain it, I would say that there is a huge checklist for us of what makes the perfect property. And this house checks quite a few of those, but it doesn't check some. And I feel like when we went to look at that house checked some of the ones that weren't on our checklist, but then a lot of the other ones that are on our checklist were unchecked there. Examples. Right now we have geothermal heating, which is wonderful. If you don't know how geothermal works, in the summertime, it pulls the cold air from the ground and it cools your house with natural temperatures that are found within the earth, which means that you're not spending a lot of money to cool your home. Wonderful. In the winter, similar situation, it pulls the heat from the earth and heats your house that way. We still use more electricity in the wintertime because it takes fans and operations to get that running. But this house that we're looking at, oil heat, which we had before, and I can tell you, it really is not fun being subject to oil prices. And when oil prices go up substantially and then you need to have your oil tank filled up to heat your house, all of those gallons of oil get poured in there and it becomes a huge bill for you. And then you're like always kind of thinking about like, oh, should we turn the heat down a little bit? Because that's a lot of oil and it's really cold outside. The house is also on a well, which isn't a huge deal, but then she had all these other tanks. We actually went on a tour with the person that owned the house, which was weird. Like, we get there and like, I've never had the person stay before. Usually it's just your realtor that takes you through. And she was there and she's like, I can either like just go hide, or if you want me to give you the tour, I can. I said, well, let's do it because you know about the house. And it was nice for that reason. But with the well, she had all these like tanks in the basement where she's like, when times get dry and there's droughts, you can have someone to fill these up with water for you. And I was just thinking like, oh, we were on well before too. And I spent a lot of money like repairing the system and made a new well tank and stuff. And right now we're on city water. So there is something nice about being on the grid, if you will. So those things kind of unchecked for me. Some of the checks that are on there were the house has a swimming pool, in-ground swimming pool, which is something I've always wanted my entire life. And there was also it was all single story, which is great as you get older. That was like the other big checklist thing. It was a pretty private location, which we'll talk about in a second, which was the nail in the coffin. But the other thing was it had an outbuilding that used to be like a garage or carriage house that was converted into a living space that maybe my in-laws could live in it if like their health starts going down in the future. So all those things were great, but the nails in the coffin were that carriage house that was converted was much too small for two people to live in, I felt like, and it would have needed completely redone inside. It was a disaster. They have someone living there right now that's renting it, and it looked like they need a a hazmat team to come in and clean it. It was crazy. I couldn't imagine letting someone live there like that. But I don't know. Other thing though, and I kind of knew that this might be an issue. There was a section of the property that showed, like in the photos, as they did like the drone overhead shot, there was like a foundation that was dug very close to this property. And one of the main things I was liking about this place was that there was like a half-mile driveway that led to this, and it was super secluded. So it'd be like our own space. Well, what this lady did after I did some research on it, she actually segmented 2 acres of this 17-acre property off to build her own house there. So this lady wasn't actually moving away. She made another parcel that was like right by the house that she built a house on. The house now is built. And her plan is to sell the house that she's at right now and then downsize into this other house that's literally right next to the property. And I'm just like, why would you do that? And this place has like a really nice view, but like she's like downsizing, but like building a new property right on there. And like, I don't want to have a half-mile driveway and all this land to have a person literally parked right next to us. Because as of right now, she was cool and all, but you can't predict the future. You don't know who or what can move in there. If the tenant that she has is like he was, as we looked into this place, what would that place become potentially? And that's like, you're right next to you. And I wanted all of that land and freedom for all the things I want to do. So that was like a big no-no for me. But the biggest thing, and I kind of knew this going in, is that there's a highway that's not too far away. Now this is up pretty high up on a mountain. So I thought, well, maybe we won't hear any road noise. I was wrong. You hear incessant road noise the entire time you're there. So like if I was chilling in the in-ground pool that this place has, all you'd hear is traffic going by. And I was just like, nope, this isn't my dream property. Nope. If like, I would say if she didn't do the thing she did where she's like building a house right next to it, which I think is crazy. I think she crippled the place because of that. And if that highway wasn't there, this place would definitely work for us. It was pretty substantial inside, all one single story. The basement was glorious, way bigger than the space that I have here. And it wasn't finished, but all it really needed was like some drywall and like some flooring. And it's super dry. It was super clean. It looked wonderful. I would have had a substantial basement area. The single story. So if we get older, it's a good forever home, if you will. Had the pool, like I mentioned, some nice land, no one around other than like a little hunting cabin that's down the road with like tons of acreage. And there was even like deer in the backyard and stuff. It would have been awesome. But with a new house coming in right beside it and the highway that's never going to be going away and always going to be loud, I couldn't justify it, especially with what they're charging. In fact, I don't think the house is going to sell. And I think she's kind of in a pickle because I think she told our realtor, I kind of overheard it. She used all of her money to build this house on the property in hopes that when she sells this house, like it funds that one. So if like no one buys this, she's kind of like doomed. She's got this house that she's building. She's got this place. She screwed it up. And I didn't know that when we scheduled the viewing of it. I was thinking like, I saw this thing and I'm like, is that a pond they're putting in? Because that'd be cool. But I was like, no, that's too big. That looks like a foundation. So I went to the recorder thing, and I could see that there was a part of it that was partitioned off, and that's what she did. Why she put it right by the house remains to be seen. But to have that kind of privacy like just completely destroyed, complete bummer. Having a half-mile driveway was a whole nother thing. I looked into like what the cost would be to maintain that. And I was thinking about like, gosh, when it snows like it is today, I mean, it's melting off now, but I'd have to have like a truck with a plow on it. So there's like, there's some cons to living out in the boonies like that, but there's also some really great stuff too. We have no neighbors. We could have our in-laws living there. I could have my pets. I could have my cake and eat it too, if you will. I have a swimming pool. All those things would have been great. But, location is so important, and that's what destroyed the place. The road and the neighbor, who was the seller. What a disaster. Anyways, it was fun looking. I enjoy looking at houses. Our realtor was like, hey, I have another place. If you like quiet, I have another place that she took us out to that like wasn't in an area that we really wanted to look at. In fact, it was in a zip code that I never even search. And the house was like an old farmhouse, but it had a lot of outbuildings and stuff. And it had a swimming pool. It just wasn't right. And I think like you might be thinking like, well, Greg, why are you even looking? Your house is so nice. And it is. But again, there's a few things that if I could get on the checklist, That would be awesome. And I think what it might come down to is us finding a decent piece of land and maybe spending a lot of money to do that and then building what we want on it. Whether if that's a single story ranch style house with a lovely finished basement, a secondary structure, or maybe something that's connected but not like in the same space for in-laws quarters, an in-ground swimming pool, geothermal heat, no road noise around it. That's my life goal. And it would just be great because if we had Bud and Deb there, I could do my traveling while still having animals because they'd be right on property to take care of them while we go out traveling. It's like, that's the future, I feel like, for us. It's just a matter of finding it, which is not easy to do. And I find that most of the land in this area is like, all the good land's been taken, obviously. And our window's small. Like if it wasn't for Cody's job, if it was just the YouTube thing we're doing, we could live anywhere and it would open up so much potential to us. I think I could get a checklist and check everything off if our window went from like within a small commuting area to like Pennsylvania, to New York, to, Ohio, wherever, New Jersey, dare I say. I don't know. I think Pennsylvania has some opportunities. It's just we're kind of limited right now. So maybe this is a future thing. Maybe it comes when Cody retires, which actually isn't too far away. She can take early retirement, I think, in like her early 50s. So maybe the next 10 years we just stack up. And then when that time comes, that's the next chapter. I'm just trying to push the chapter forward right now. And I just felt like it was the time. So we're just keeping our options open, looking. I don't think that hurts to do. I like to look at the photos of houses on realtor.com and just dream and kind of think like, oh, what would I like to be there and stuff like that. But getting when you have a huge checklist and like your current place checks off a lot of those, it's hard to go look at places because it's like, well, we have a better view than that place has. We have, the heating system. We've got this place made up just the way I want it. I've got my studio here. It would take a lot for me to be like, okay, let's leave all this behind for something else. So there's the, wow, this was supposed to be a short episode, I thought. Nothing happened this week, guys. There you go. Let's go into listener feedback, though, the most exciting part of the episode, because it's not the part where I talk about myself. You guys had a lot to say about the estate sale hard drive, which I have to say, everyone that commented on it said that I should contact the person. I haven't done that yet because I am putting it off and dreading it because I'm an introvert and I just don't want to come in contact with another person, maybe. But here's what you guys had to say, starting with Epic Arcade Official. Says, in regards to texting the lady for the return of the family photos, absolutely reach out. Those memories are irreplaceable. Give her a chance to claim them. It's very thoughtful of you to do that, and also very disgusting that you wouldn't have done it yet, he said. Didn't say that. Next one comes from Jennifer, who says, about the hard drive family photos, I would want the photos back, but I would be afraid it was a scam if you texted. Is there any way to identify the church, or can you find a neighbor of them and try to get back to the family through someone who knew them? I would trust it more coming from someone who knew us. In the future, when you buy something like this, asking before taking it, did they get the important information off of it? Or take a note of where you buy the stuff and check as soon as possible so you can return the photos to the stuff and family. Yeah, I know, I have a general idea of where the house was, but I don't remember it specifically. And I don't know if her actual church was on the stuff or if she just had church meeting minutes on there. All the best lead that I have is all the recon that I did on the family members, particularly the daughter and grandkids that are listed on there. So yeah, I should have asked beforehand, especially with cameras. What I should do with cameras, this is easy with cameras. Pop it open while I'm there. If there's a card in it, take the card out and be like, hey, there might be some photos on here. Go ahead and, you keep this. I don't need it. That would have been the move. I didn't even think of it when I got the camera, but now this is the second time this has happened where I've had, precious family photos and moments that were unintentionally sold. But it's a lot when you're having an estate sale and a lot to go through and to think about. And that's probably not the top of most people's radars, I would say, top of mind. Next one comes from Junk Builds. It says, with the drive and photos, I would contact the company that managed the estate sale. This was just them. I think it was just the family doing it. But reach out to funeral service. See, I think the people may still be alive, because there was no obituary. Well, there's no obituary for her, but the husband passed away in 2022. So I don't know. Maybe she just moved out of the house or downsized. Maybe she went into a home. Maybe she's living with the kids. It's all possible. He says, if no luck, I would let it go. I like this idea. Creepy to get a text from someone randomly about a dead family member. They've already been dealing with others trying to pry that that took similar steps. Did you wait? They've already been dealing with others trying to pry that took similar steps you did to find their contact information. Unfortunate, but the world we live in is where you can't really find information about someone with a small amount of personal info. It is crazy, isn't it? Like you just have a name or last name, and lots of people put their information out like very easily. Like LinkedIn, I think is an easy way to find people because they put like their name and location and their job title. So if you have like just a little bit, you could find them if you want to. Now, is there anything to actually do with that information? Probably not, unless you're a crazy stalker type. But I, to be honest, when we went to look at this house, I looked up the lady's name just to see, like, oh, what's this person like? She had no footprint at all. I admired her for that. She didn't have Facebook, LinkedIn, nothing. So I was just kind of curious, like, because you wonder, like, why is this person moving? What is the story? She had no story other than, I guess, downsizing into another house that she was building brand new right beside the property that seemed to be not that small. Very bizarre. I don't like the story. Next one comes from Nathaniel. He says, I found Missing Pieces to be a reliable source of entertainment to help me through some of the more mundane tasks in life. I appreciate that. Doing tasks in my room or sitting on the bus, I appreciate getting to hear about what you and Clark have been up to each week. Hearing you talk about your projects and progress you've made motivates me to keep up with my stuff too. What about the lack of progress, like in the world of eBay? Does that motivate you to do better than me? I hope so. In terms of photographs, in the quite unlikely event the family are not happy with you contacting them, what is the chance you'll ever end up meeting them? Zero. I'm sure they would not recognize you anyway, and therefore nothing back come of it afterwards. That's a good point. Texting her, it's just a text. And, you know, it is what it is. He says, thanks for another great podcast and have a fantastic week. Thank you. You too, sir. Next one comes from Dusty. He says, it's more interesting how all the things you discuss deal with life and memories. It's interesting how all the things you discuss deal with life and memories. A lot of times, sure. As far as connecting with the family, I'd say do it. It's hard to remember to go through when you're grieving, and these pictures might really matter to the family. You guys are guilting me into this. And if not, at least you did a good thing that you'll feel good. They'll make you feel good. Finally, as you ponder the future in your cameras, remember that the most important value is to be grateful for which you always are. That's why Clark is such a great kid. I appreciate that. What I'll be grateful for is some starting lineup videos. I'm grateful even if you don't film them. I like to joke, dude, I have intentions to make those. I need to just make a day each week because I have like a stockpile of them now. We got some in mail time. I've got a few different orders and I was like, oh, I'm not going to do them all at once. I'll do like different episodes so I can like really focus on them. And what I love to do is a voiceover effect one where it's a little more profesh, where I open it up on camera, have some nice shots of it, some nice angles, but then later do a voiceover effect where I have like the smooth, cool sounding audio and like show it off like in good detail. I think that'd be so nice. So I might try one that way and see what the peeps think. Definitely not the most popular thing that I do. People would rather watch me do my boring daily stuff than watch starting lineups, but I share my hobbies and goals. That's the future for me, I think. Next one comes from Sam. This one's a long one, so I'm going to warn you ahead of time. He says, good evening, Greg. Here's my take on the whole stranger photo album thing. I think you should definitely reach out to these folks. I personally would be thrilled if someone found something like this at one point in my life or my life or the life of my family. Here's an opinion of mine that might be a bit controversial. I think it's just fine that you found those individuals' info on Google. I have done so many times either by accident or to find out who lives in what house in my city. You'd be surprised how much I know about some people, even YouTubers. Anyways, just be careful what you text these people. That's my advice. Is he talking about me? Is he talking about me? Sam shows up at my house. He's like, I've been watching you. My next piece of advice is in relation to your camera situation. I did see a difference when you started filming with the new camera. However, I've never really thought of the quality of your videos as bad. I say you should do what makes you the happiest. If this camera excites you, which it sounds like it does, you should definitely use it, assuming you can afford it, obviously. I like it if all things were equal, but I think I'd like to have the money more. Think of all the things we could do with that. Same goes for your philosophy for living for today and not tomorrow, which, by the way, I think is a fabulous way to look at life. Live every moment. I'll tell you a sad story. A couple weeks ago, my dad had a crew from Georgia up here for a bird hunting excursion. However, 2 of them had to leave us on short notice the next day because one of their wives, who was in their 40s, I believe, died of a sudden heart attack. It's stuff like that that makes you look back at life with gratitude for what you have. I always say tomorrow is not guaranteed, and that's why I'm kind of thinking more about today and making moves now and not waiting until later. But you got to make the right moves at the right time and make moves that make sense, I think. I think that's a good caveat to go with living for today. You don't want to do something that you're going to regret will have negative consequences or that you might have to pay for later. You could do, like, even living for today, you have to think about the consequences. Like, you want to go to Las Vegas and gamble a whole bunch of money. Well, tomorrow you might need to pay some bills tomorrow after you lose all your savings. It's one of those things where even if you are living for today, you have to be conscious of tomorrow, even if you're not like only living for tomorrow. He says, Greg, I know you said we don't need to pray for you over the skin cancer, but I definitely will be praying for you tonight. I know what this stuff can do to people. I've had unfortunate firsthand experience with it through family members. Yeah, I'm going to be fine. It's not spreading. It's just a little spot. They're just going to do a little snip and probably put a little stitch there. It's like right on my chest right here. It's almost not even noticeable, but it's good to get these things looked at and checked out. I'm glad that I went. So if you're ever, this is like some advice detect. If you're ever having any kind of medical thing where you're just like not sure, don't ignore it, even though like it may be expensive for you to go look at or get looked at, or you have a high deductible or whatever. Here in the US, we have to worry about these things. All you guys that have health insurance, or health care, you live a life where maybe you can just go get that looked at. Don't let something silly turn into something major. And that's, I think, the biggest weakness of our system is that people are so hesitant to go like get something like this looked at and be like, oh, I got to go pay for this and everything, where they wait and don't do anything. And then all of a sudden you're having like crazy surgery that's exponentially more expensive. Preventative measures are so much more valuable and worthwhile for companies. And I'm surprised that like they don't see that. So I don't know. I apologize. We seem to always get into like these, I don't want to call that it's like a societal thing. I've been going down that path lately, but I guess it's just top of mind for me in a lot of situations. He says, moving on to a lighter note, when I first discovered your channel, I watched a ton of your videos from all eras of the channel. I thought the old videos were just fine, so don't be embarrassed by them. My favorite video from the pre-Clark days is probably the Scaredy Dog video. Roxy was so funny in that one. It was so funny when she did that again just over a year ago. Like always, I'm so thankful that you do this on top of the already outstanding work you give us. That's where I know he's lying. May the rest of your week bring the best, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I do appreciate the encouragement from you guys. And I know, like, I'm probably harder on myself and everything that I do than anyone is, and that's absolutely the truth. But I don't know. I think that kind of helps me in some regards because I do have a lot of cheerleaders in my life, and it's really great, all the support that I get. The haters are non-existent at this point. I can't even tell you the last time I got a hateful comment. It was probably the one about, I think I shared it here weeks and weeks ago, where the person said something about like me being a loser for playing with Lego or plastic toys or spending my time on that. That was literally the last negative thing that I've gotten. It's just people being nice, and it's awesome to see. And I think who you are and what you put out is what you get in return. And that could be applied towards pretty much everything in life, right? If you are a jerk or you're like a road rager, you're probably going to get a road rager that's road raging with you, or like, bad things, good things happen to bad people occasionally, and bad things happen to good people. But I feel like more often than not, those things are tied together. Good things happen to good people. And if you try to be a good person, I think the world will reward you for that. And I feel that in my life in some ways. Do I feel like a lot of it's luck? Yes. Do I feel like some of it is through hard work? Yes. Do I feel like some of it is just the way that nature works? Yes. I can't prove any of that, but it's just a feeling, right? Let's move on to Aussie guy who has a question. He says, "Hi, Greg. Can you please help me? I don't even know if I can help myself." He says, "I've been recording the family videos for quite a while now, recording with my Pocket 3. Lovely camera, and storing great memories. I've downloaded Adobe Premiere and I import the video files and start editing, but it just never produce anything worth keeping. The goal, I'm not trying to create or edit anything that's for YouTube. I just want something that I can catalog and enjoy again someday in a simple edited video. Can you guide me through your thought process for creating a video and how you achieve what you do?" Well, my videos are a little different. On an average video that you watch is usually about an hour's worth of video content. I record a lot, more often than not. I'm like, I'm just recording stuff that, that I find interesting or things that are happening. And I try to boil that down to something that I think other people would find interesting, and try to keep the pacing good enough that if you're watching it, maybe you'd want to follow along, not to let things drag on too long. You're in a different situation though, because you're just making these videos for personal use. And in my opinion, you really don't have to edit these at all. Like if you're just making home movies for yourself, think back on the VHS days when people would have big camcorders on their shoulders or any camcorder that was recorded to a tape. You would never edit that. That was just a raw file. That being said, like I would just start with cutting out like the beginning and end of it, like when you're like fumbling with the camera. That, that's usually a lot of editing. But like just pull the camera out when like something's happening that you want to capture, and then just just record it, pull that off the camera on an SD card or whatever, and then just title it something, almost like the lady did that had the SD card that I found, where it's like, my son or daughter saying the alphabet for the first time, my son or daughter first birthday, whatever the case is. Just kind of catalog them that way. I wouldn't worry so much about editing them. I'm not sure what you're like going for when you're editing. You say you put them into the Adobe Premiere, which is a more advanced program than I use even. But yeah, I don't think you're trying to make like a Hollywood movie here. Just, what did you record? When you pulled the camera out, surely you pulled it out for some reason. Are you just like filming something like in the moment? I would wait until something's happening personally. I wouldn't just like film like although candid moments are fun. Wouldn't just film your kid like just sitting there. It's like, or maybe they're making a piece of art for the first time and you're like, oh, I'm going to film this, and just get a shot of that happening. And I find people to be the most interesting thing to film. Like people like seeing other people as opposed to like things. That's why like photographs for me, I'm more interested in photos of people than I am of like scenery or flowers or sunsets. I like the human connection. But yeah, I just be a little selective of what you film, and being that you're not like putting this out anywhere, I just let it ride. Just film whatever is happening in your life. And it doesn't have to be anything spectacular either. Some of my favorite moments that I've had that I've shared are actually the simple times. The times that I'm saying right now aren't worth sharing, and I only say that because it's just me. It's the times when Clark's there with me and I'm like documenting us having lunch together. I'm making some tomato soup and some grilled cheese and we're sitting down and eating it. That is prime content in my opinion, because that is a moment in time that'll never happen again. Will I ever eat lunch with a 4-year-old Clarkman and talk about whatever it is that we're talking about in that moment? No. Those are the moments to capture. It's the things that you can never get back again. And those are the most important things. So that's my recommendation for you. I don't know if that helps you at all. It sounds like you got a lot of footage to go through, but yeah, just chop it up. If you got a lot of stuff that's just kind of like non-tent, if you will, chop the heck out of it and turn it into something. Make yourself a 10-minute video, but you're never going to regret having too much content. And hard drives are cheap, my dude. Like get a 5 terabyte hard drive and load that thing up and call it 2024. Do it again next year. Put it in the cloud, whatever. Make sure you have backups of everything though. I double it. I have a primary and a secondary. That way if one hard drive fails, I have the other one, because this is stuff you don't want to lose. So that's a message to everyone out there. Back up all your stuff. Your phone might go flying off the roller coaster. Anything could happen. Have your stuff in the cloud. All your photos need to be backed up. Don't lose your stuff. Please. That's like, if you take anything away from this episode, that is the most important thing I could tell you today. Also, if you sell your stuff, make sure you take the card out of the Pocket 3. Next one comes from DB Bricks, classy fella. He says, you're most definitely not the only person who's approached 40 and ever thought, what am I doing all this for? Is my health as good as I think it is? How much longer will family life as it is continue? Have I managed my finances correctly? Should I blow $85,000 on an RV? There's many, many millions of people who have had similar thoughts. So many people, in fact, that it has a name, the dreaded midlife crisis. Sounds like it's just starting to creep up on you, Greg. It could be. I think the number 40 around the corner is like, it's got me thinking like, geez, we're 40 years in. Life expectancies, you just going off the numbers. Life expectancies, we might be halfway. We might be at the midlife. So like I'm always thinking like, what's the next chapter? Where are we going? Where are the goals at? Where's my focus? I focus on my focus a lot. He says, the way to look at it is this. You have the most amazing family in the world. I would say so, but I'm biased. There's probably a lot of other more amazing families out there. He says, you work your dream job. That's true. You're presumably financially very stable. Assuming all goes well next March, he's talking about getting the thing cut out. You're very, very good shape for a man of 40. Goes without saying, best of luck for the procedure. The fact that getting an RV can even be a dream shows just how good a position you're in right now. As far as midlife crises go, it's the kind of crisis some of us would love to have. Let's talk about the RV thing real quick before we get in the next part of this, because the next part's the best part, in my opinion. I did the mathletics on it. $85,000. If you were to say, instead of having an RV that you're going to stay in, like as you go traveling, let's just say that you were to use those funds. If you had $85,000 sitting around, use those funds for accommodations while you travel. Okay. Say you spent $200 a night for hotels, motels, camping, whatever it is. $200 a night, I think, is a fine average, even if you wanted to go more. I'm just using 200 because it's an even number to go into 80,000, which would put us at 400 nights of $200 a night. Okay, 400 nights. And let's say that we were to travel from the day that Cody and Clark get out of school in June until the day that they go back in August. That would be June to July. July to August. That would be 60 days out of 400. That's 1 year. So you are looking at a solid, like 5.5 years, 6 years of nonstop travel every single summer before the accommodations in the hotel rooms equal the cost of that RV. And that's literally traveling every single day. So you'd have to say, what would that RV be worth? What would be the residual value of that RV from the 85,000 if you were to travel in that for the next 5 years, every single day going to different locations or same locations for the next 5 years traveling? And I would think that the value of that's going to plummet so hard with the mileage and the wear and tear and then the repairs and the maintenance. I just think that taking that path, as cool as it would be, and to have your stuff on the road with you would be awesome, but I think would also be a financial disaster. I think a much smarter move is to get a van of sorts where you can pack your stuff together, but it's just a regular passenger van or even a minivan that you can like put all your stuff onto, maybe with a rack or like a roof box on top. And then you take like your bikes and put them on the back and all the things you like to do, have your hiking shoes inside and all that. And then you go out and have your adventures and you stay in different places every night. Not only does that become interesting because you're staying in new locations instead of the same one all the time, but like, I think it makes traveling that much easier when you're not in a bigger RV. And then the maintenance on a passenger vehicle is a lot easier. You get a Honda van or whatever, you can go to any Honda dealership. They got parts. I mean, I'm just using that as an example. I just think financially, that's just such a better move. And you're obviously not going to be traveling every single day of summer as you know, for the next 5 years, every single day. But that's just like, it just doesn't make much sense financially. Now, maybe getting a used one would, but again, you got the maintenance and the repairs and all that stuff to deal with. And I feel like as adventurous as an RV seems, I think it's more adventurous to be finding places to stay, like Airbnbs, staying in like cool cabins, staying in all these different locales, and like hotels and things would be even more fun. You got pools that you can go into, free breakfasts. And you know, not every place is going to be, you know, $200, could be more, could be less. And it just opens you up to a lot more adventures. And that's something that like I would like to get into. In fact, DB is a Patreon detector. And I had an idea this week that I thought I'd just throw out here briefly as we cross the 1 hour mark. We did it. How did this become the longest episode? I thought about doing a thing where I take the Patreon money each month and we use that for travel and we let Patreon dictate like kind of what we do. I throw out some ideas and then I use that to make content specifically for Patreon, since that like it's like kind of like the payback essentially. Now, doing this during the school year is a little challenging because Cody and Clark, they've got 2 days off per week. And during that time, they may not necessarily want to go traveling somewhere during their few days off. But I feel like if we were to like really get some summer things going, that could be an incredible thing. So like we start planning, we make something happen where we use the funds, say through June, July, August, and those months. Did I count for June, July? I guess that'd be 90 days. Not quite though. It's middle of June to middle of August. So I guess it is more like 2 months. Then we make Patreon videos, and then I could put out like little trailers or like highlight videos on YouTube, and that may encourage more people to join. I think that could be a really great thing. I thought about this week and I'm like, that's really fun. So, and we could do it in an RV, but I think doing it in like a regular vehicle makes a lot more sense. And you can weigh in on this, and I'm sure people that have had RVs probably would be like, I think you're on the right track, Greg. Wait until you see what repairs cost for that and to try to get it repaired. And then that's off the road for that time too. And that's your home and travel thing while you're out. So just thinking about those things. Let's go back to DB's story. He was like, tell my story. I'm going to tell your story right now. He says he's been feeling like he's having a midlife crisis since he turned 21, 36 now. I've always struggled massively with mental health and motivation, have never had the income to be financially secure, live alone, carry too many pounds for my liking, etc., etc. I know there's so many people who would give everything to be in my sort of position. I know I should be grateful to have a roof over my head and be able to put food on the table, but I just can't find satisfaction in being better off than those less fortunate. I think it's a lot easier to compare yourself with people above you. But man, when you really do think, like, sometimes, and maybe this would be helpful to someone, and this is a little depressing, but occasionally YouTube will recommend a video to me that's like someone's final video that has cancer, or their series where they document their cancer story. And anytime that I watch those videos, as sad as it is seeing someone go from being like this happy, healthy person in like the first video all the way down to their final one, where they're maybe even sometimes still in like denial, where they're like, I'm gonna beat this and we'll be back in the next video. And then there's never another one. I always leave those videos feeling so fortunate because I think, what could I possibly complain about? How could I ever complain about anything when this person is dealing with this? So I don't know if that would be helpful or not helpful. If anyone else, I'm not just talking to DB here, but anybody, like when you're thinking like, boy, I wish I had this or that, or, I'm wishing I had more things in my life or a better position. Like if you start thinking like that, it's like, geez, I'm happy to have legs. I can go walking today if I want to. I can do anything. I'm free. I guess it's all about perspective, and it's so hard to kind of think outside of your own situation. But yeah, you could always say someone has worse, and to be alive today is a gift, is what I say. But he goes on to say, the main thing that does keep me motivated are those days that make you go, I'm living for today, a day that will stick with you and you'll cherish for the rest of your life. They don't come around often, but when they do, they're special. Thankfully, as you record episode 231, I'll be on my way up to London for the weekend. And as the episode is released on Sunday, I'll be watching my best friend of nearly 25 years get married. I'm nervous, just wanting the whole day to be perfect from start to finish, but I'm also incredibly excited. I just need to find another date on the calendar to look forward to once it's all done. I love that. Dude, I hope you have a blast. If it's happening right now while you're listening to this, he has an earbud in at the wedding. Don't do that. I hope the wedding is a smashing success. Hope for good weather. Everyone's happy. You eat some great food. You do some dancing. You have a good time. All things that weddings are made of. I wish all that for you. But thank you for the lovely comment, the introspection, new word I'm making up, and the advice for me and a lot of other people out there. I think a lot of people could be helped by your comments, and I appreciate that. Speaking of comments that I appreciate, last one of the day, we got Megan, who says, she's sending us out here, which is perfect because it's the final comment. She says, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving week. Same to you. Glad to hear the family is coming to you. Enjoy the time and no pressure to make content for us. I'll be heading home to Minnesota, Minnesota, after church on Thanksgiving to my grandparents. I really do feel like this will be the last one we have at their house with them. It'll be bittersweet. But my birthday is on Thanksgiving Day this year, so I really wanted to make that happen and see family. Enjoy your family. And that is a message to everyone else out there. Megan, not only to you, to enjoy the time with your family if you're celebrating Thanksgiving or not. Take a little moment to be thankful, as I continue to butcher the English language. Take a moment to be thankful for the things you have, and don't worry about the things you don't have. The checklists that you hope to be complete, the interesting videos that you wish you could make but are just boring as heck, the podcasts that will be disappointing to everyone out there and surely won't last over an hour. All those things are not even on your radar. You're just thinking about enjoying the time that you have and living for today, because you never know if this is going to be the last time. You don't know what the future holds. Will your grandparents be there next year? If not, this is the time. And I encourage you, at the very least, you may not be somebody that documents everything like me, but you might want to get a couple photos that day of your family together. Take some photos, get some videos, because someday you're going to cherish that. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So as far as content goes, there will most certainly be a Thanksgiving video of the family being here. Everybody's coming in. It's going to be great. We're going to be gaming that night. Hopefully Landon's going to be here, maybe Kyle, but the whole family's coming. And not only that, but like the next 10 days, Clark man off all that time. Cody's going to be off after just a few little days at school. And it's just going to be great to have the whole family here. And I feel like it's going to reinvigorate me. And like, it's just going to be fun because I get to do all the things I love to do, hanging out with my family, building Lego, watching stuff. We're going to be doing gaming videos, just like enjoying the time together. And what better thing can you do than that? So on that, I wish all of you a very happy Thanksgiving, whether you celebrate it or not. Have a great week. Of course, I should say we're not going to be back next week. It's going to be the day after Thanksgiving. We're still going to be off. So I will have an extra great podcast episode for you in 2 weeks from now, where I'll tell you all about all the things that happen. Hopefully nothing but positive stuff. And I hope that you guys have something similar to share with me as well. I love listener feedback. And if you have anything that you'd like to put out there to the world, I'm happy to read it poorly in most cases, but I'm happy to have it be a part of episode 232, which is where I'll see you the next time I see you. So on that, have a glorious one. And as always, we'll find you in the next Missing Pieces.